You're listening to The Charity Show, the podcast for charity insiders by charity insiders. Expect honest conversations, expert insights, and stories from behind the scenes of the sector. Enjoying the show? Take a moment to rate, follow, and subscribe on your usual podcast platform. Here's what's coming up in episode 30.
I was taken out of education for a year of intensive treatment, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, surgeries. Fast forward again to when I was 16, I unfortunately faced the same issue of having cancer, being taken out of education, having the treatments, the recovery period, all of which removed me from what is a young person's normal life. So I took something which was really horrible for me, really horrible for my family, and thought, how can we make sure this never happens again? That was really where Bright Futures came from. Almost 9 years on, I've never looked back, and the charity it does incredible work that I'm very proud of.
I've got this amazing charity called Flutter. Flutter is a small but properly mighty UK charity supporting people who've been diagnosed with kidney cancer. Their mission, they tell us, is simple: to bring a little brightness during a really tough time. They do this by providing butterfly bags and comfort cushions, both handmade by volunteers and given completely free to patients through hospitals and clinics. The idea came from Mary Sofa, who was diagnosed with kidney cancer herself in 2017. She realised how isolating and overwhelming the experience can be, especially during hospital stays and treatment.
Well, this week there's been an explosive news story. It features a Colchester charity shop for the RSPCA who had to call in the bomb squad after opening one of their bags of the regular donations that the charity shops receive to find a 2 or 3 kilo explosive device. The bomb squad were called in, and the Essex police said that within 15 minutes they had sent out an army bomb disposal unit officer. Welcome back to The Charity Show. I'm Piers Townley.
And I'm Tim Bainan. How are you doing, Piers? The kids keep reminding me that it's touching distance to the summer holidays. In fact, I think once this episode comes out, we'll officially be in school summer holidays, so we're pretty much there. Are you ready for them? Have you got your holiday bags packed yet?
I think I have, actually, but there's always something that won't be going. I think my kids are going to take literally the entire house with them as well. It's just like, oh, this is ridiculous. But then we're in that dilemma. The kids are off and, oh, we're bored. And I'm like, oh my God, we're bored. Can't do anything about that. Just go and do some chores. Do this, do that.
Yeah.
And it's just a moan. The house is a moan. I think everyone needs a bit of a break.
Have you talked to your kids about what you used to do in the summer holidays when there wasn't any screens? That was it. Goodness.
But then we always said before, I'm not going to be that person that goes, when I was your age, and you are inevitably turning into that. So all the time they're like, oh God, yeah, don't be you're so old. And I'm just like, oh dear me. It's like a never ending moan.
Yeah, go out and play in the fields. Go on, that's what you used to do. Put the phone down, get out there.
Exactly. Go and be bored somewhere else.
So even though we've got some holidays just around the corner, but this week we're going to be talking to Josh Pelled about Bright Futures UK, the incredible charity he set up to help young people back into education after time out due to serious illness. It's an amazing story, Piers. I know you weren't able to make the call with Josh, unfortunately, but he's an amazing guy, as you'll hear. He had cancer himself twice, in fact. I mean, how incredible is that? Unlucky for him and devastating for him, but what an amazing guy he is. And he had cancer twice, as I said, as a child and as a teenager. And he's actually poured his efforts into creating this incredible charity to support children and young people who are facing those same challenges in terms of getting back into education after time away. So it's an incredibly powerful story with a very personal link and connection, obviously, for him to those that he works with, the people the charity supports. But we hear that a lot, don't we? We hear a lot about, it is amazing how many people have that personal connection to the charities they either work with or for. And you're the same, aren't you? You've got a very personal connection with the Brain Tumour charity.
I have, yeah. And since my time at the charity as well, you hear more and more people who've got, if not a direct connection, someone who's not far off in their family or their friends or their loved ones. And indeed, we have a handful of people who work at the charity who are actually living with their own diagnosis as well. But yeah, my dad's got a brain tumour. We knew of the Brain Tumour charity before I actually got privileged enough to work here. We were using the charity's resources and support back when he was diagnosed. So having the opportunity then to kind of, as I shifted from my old journalism background and was exploring what else to do next, it was like, oh, there's a job coming up at the charity that we used to support my dad. So yeah, there is that personal connection. So it's not a prerequisite by any means to work in a charity where you have a personal connection, but it does, I think, give me a little bit of an insight into the mechanisms and the procedures and the angst and the stress of a diagnosis and what kind of things, you end up going on that journey when you do get diagnosed with a brain tumor. So yeah, personal connection, which does, and thankfully he's all right. So, shout out to my dad, but yeah, it does frame the day to day quite a lot.
Yeah, it's good to hear. And it's, that personal connection is really, really strong for you personally. I don't have that I never had that sort of direct personal connection to any of the charities I've worked for in the past. But I have grown to really care about those causes and the people they support. So I think people, you might go into a charity, you might not necessarily have that personal link like you do, but it's amazing how much people care about and grow to care about the people they support and the causes and what they're doing. And I think that's the key difference between working in this sector and elsewhere, is that you end up really passionately caring about the people you're here to work.
And you see that with the roles that we have and the people that we work alongside, that passion does come out. I mean, it feels like a very unique area to be in, and the third sector is just full of so many amazing people doing so many amazing things.
Yeah. I will say as well, there's no doubt at all that when you are impacted by something, like I was by prostate cancer, you do become very attached to the charities that supported you during that time as well. So I have a definite soft spot for Prostate Cancer UK. I think they're brilliant. They really helped me. I was going through what I was going through. So, even if you're not working for a charity, it's obviously that connection that people have. It's a very emotional and very powerful connection that people have to an organisation, essentially. So,
absolutely.
Really powerful.
And you don't really want that connection, not in an ideal world, especially if it's a health concern. But you are, invariably grateful to that charity does exist, does the work that it does.
Today's guest is Josh Pelled, Chief Executive of Bright Futures UK, a charity that supports young people who are forced to take time out of education due to long-term illness. Josh's story is a powerful one. Having faced cancer not once, but twice as a child and teenager, he knows firsthand just how isolating and disruptive serious illness can be, not just physically, but socially and educationally. What started as a simple idea to offer peer support in hospital corridors has grown into a national charity providing personalised tutoring, mentoring and befriending programmes for young people aged 5 to 24. In this episode, Josh talks about building Bright Futures from the ground up, the lessons he's learned as a young charity founder, and why he believes lived experience should shape the way we offer support. The conversation, as usual, is split into two parts, with a quick break in the middle for the latest charity news. So, here's part one. Josh, welcome to the Charity Show. Fantastic to see you. Lovely to see you, especially on a very hot and sweaty Friday afternoon. So thank you for joining us today. Let's start, if you may, with a little bit of background, a bit of your story. You've had a pretty intense journey yourself with illness a couple of times, actually. Can you take us back to those times and tell us how that experience ended up shaping and creating Bright Futures UK?
Absolutely. Firstly, lovely to be here, Tim. Thank you for having me. It's an interesting story because it's one of those where we always hope that people who go through horrible situations don't have to face them. But if you do have to face them, you hope that they turn into something positive. And with me, that is the case, I'm pleased to say. I unfortunately, when I was young, at the age of 5, suffered from cancer. I was taken out of education for a year of intensive treatment, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, surgeries. Fast forward again to when I was 16, I unfortunately faced the same issue of having cancer, being taken out of education, having the treatments, the recovery period, all of which removed me from what is a young person's normal life. It's a horrible thing to do. School is a bubble where you immerse yourself in, it's everything to you. It's your learning, it's where you're developing as a person, it's where you're building connections, building friendships. So it was a challenging time. I'm very grateful. I had incredible family and friends around me who really made sure that whatever I needed, I was provided. But I did see so many other young people who were going through treatment with me, who I saw while I was in hospital, who weren't having the same opportunities and weren't being given the same support. So I took something which was really horrible for me, really horrible for my family, friends, and thought, how can we make sure this never happens again? that was really where Bright Futures came from. I think it's quite honest of me to say I never thought I'd end up in the charity sector. My background is working with business economics and startups and entrepreneurship, but I found a real passion when we launched Bright Futures, and almost 9 years on, I've never looked back, and the charity it does incredible work that I'm very proud of. So horrible situation when I was younger, but we've managed to turn it into something which makes sure that no young person going through what I went through has to face the challenges of going through it alone, really.
Incredibly inspirational stuff, and it's lovely to see that you've been able to shape that personal adversity into something that's doing so much good for others. Perhaps you could shed a little bit of light on it for us. What's it like as a young person going back into education or just rebuilding your life after being so ill?
Listen, I think it's very hard to give a view of what it's like for people going through that. Every young person has a different experience when they go through an illness. Whether it's 2 cancer patients, they'll have completely different experiences. Mental health patients, everyone will face their own challenges and respond differently to what they're going through. For me personally, it was really the loss of normality and adjusting to that. So when I was taken out of school at 5, you don't really understand what's going on. You're not really attuned to all the challenges that you're going to be facing as you step into this world that's thankfully unknown to me. So facing that at such a young age, it was I'm not going to school tomorrow, I'm not seeing my friends, I'm not going on the school trip, whatever it was that was normal. So I think that was the biggest hurdle for me. And then when I was 16 and obviously an older age, it's a different set of challenges that I and anyone else going through illness at that sort of age will face. For me, at 16, it was the big transition year between GCSE and A-level, where you get a nice long summer. A lot of people tend to go away with their mates. It's the first independent holiday as a young person. So unfortunately, I didn't get to experience that. And again, it's the removal from normality. Life is moving at such a fast pace for young people around those teenage years that any amount of time out of normality has huge implications to how you are, how you develop, how you look at what am I going to do for A-levels, what am I going to do at university, so on and so forth. So it's that break of normality and how you have to adjust quite quickly to that.
Yeah, incredibly daunting. I imagine I've got a teenage son about that sort of age, and it's all about his friends. If you take him out of that context for any moment of time, he doesn't know what to do. So it's all about what your friends are doing. It's all about what everyone else is doing. So I can't imagine how hard that must be for a young person and for their families as well. Tell me, though, a lot of people from personal experience do want to do good and do want to give back, and especially if they've been helped by people themselves. And so a lot of charities are often born out of personal experience. But how do you turn that into something that is long-term sustainable? What were the first sort of steps you took to set up the charity, and also to ensure that this wasn't going to be a short-term thing, this was something that was going to last?
I think when you're as young as I was when you were setting up a charity, which I would tend to say is not the typical age demographic for starting a charity or a non-profit, it's a lot of learning, a lot of trying things out, a lot of making mistakes. I very much, as I said, never expected to end up in the charity sector. It's a happy coincidence looking back on it now. But when we set the charity up, we didn't actually plan to set a charity up. We planned to go to my hospital where me and my co-founder Natalie were treated. We planned to go to one of the wards where we were treated and talk to some of the young people who were going through a similar situation to us. Talk to them about what does life look like when you finish treatment, when you're going back into school, when you're looking to go into the working world, when you're moving on to higher education, and how can you plan for that? How can you consider what you've been through illness-wise? So we very naively, I think is the correct word to say, went into hospital, thought, we'll just talk to a few young people, have a nice chat, see how it goes. we ran the first session with probably, I think, 5 or 6 young people. And the hospital said, we'll see you next week. And they said, we'll see you the week after. And it very organically snowballed into something where we had to set a charity up. There was actually too much work to just do on a whim. So the charity was very much born out of the need rather than the want from us. And we responded to that need. We set the charity up. The journey to get to where we are almost 9 years later has been one of, as I mentioned, trying things out, getting things wrong, taking, I think the biggest lesson I've learned over the time of setting the charity up is be a sponge, be curious, soak up as much information as you can, ask people who are a few steps ahead of you, who have experience of facing challenges and overcoming them with kind of the organization. So it's really been a journey of having the fundamental idea of what needs to happen and then figure out how to do it through learning and through being curious.
Yeah. Did you look to peers and other charities in terms of learning from how they've done it as well? So did you find yourself, did you join or find a network of peers that were able to help you?
I did absolutely. And I think that's where the learning of being curious has come from. I was very fortunate that when we were looking to start formalizing the charity, I had a few contacts of people I knew who were in the charity space, who ran some amazing charities themselves. And I was able to get some incredible, invaluable mentorship from them. And I really do believe that without that kind of guidance, without that support, without that mentorship, we wouldn't be where we are today. There would have been too much trying to figure it out and not enough getting it right and progressing the charity. So having those people around me was truly one of the most invaluable things that happened to myself and to Bright Futures very early on.
Yeah, I love hearing that. Charity folks helping charity folks. It's good. It's good to hear. Tell us a little bit about the charity itself then. Tell us about the work that you do and the personalised support that you offer. It strikes me that personalised word is really important because you do seem to offer that very personalised support to individuals. No two experiences of illness are obviously are the same. As you've mentioned already, people have different reactions to things and people are impacted in a multitude of different ways. How do you therefore work around that? And what does a typical support journey look like for someone?
Sure. So an overview of Bright Futures is we are the only charity supporting children and young people who are forced to take time out of education due to long-term illnesses. We work with children from the age of 5 all the way up to 24, so covering all educational ages, and we support young people who face any kind of long-term illness, whether that's a physical illness like cancer, like chronic fatigue, like Crohn's, all the way to mental health conditions such as eating disorders, anxiety, depression, so on and so forth. So we really try to make sure that whatever experiences meaning you're out of education and whatever stage of education you are at, you are able to get the correct support. And you're absolutely right. And as we've mentioned already, that no young person going through the same illness or the same stage of education faces the same experiences. So that was really important to me as someone who has lived experience, that we designed the charity to make sure that that was the heart of what we do. It's not saying, here's a service, try it out, see if it works, or here's this, do you want it, yes or no? It's really about saying, we're here for you. What is it that you need from us? What is it that we can do to support you and make sure that this really horrible experience you're going through medically is not the reason why you're not able to achieve what you want to achieve, what you're able to achieve. So we do have 4 core programs that we offer. We offer tutoring, we offer mentoring, we offer befriending, which are all one-to-one programs. And then we offer skill-based workshops for more group-based settings. Every program that we deliver is completely personalized to the young person or the group we're working with. So the way typically our programs work is someone will reach out to us or we'll get a referral from an organization or hospital partner. They'll say, here's so-and-so, they've been out of education for this long, suffering from this illness. We will then carry out an initial assessment with the young person to essentially find out about them and say, what is it we can do for you? Based on what they say, we will then create the program for them. And one of the most unique things about us as a charity is that we work with volunteers. So we're tapping into a network of really skilled professionals, individuals who have spent years and years passing certain qualifications, building certain skills, and we're able to tap into their expertise, provide a lot of training and support to make sure the volunteers know how to work in a program with a young person facing illness, and deliver that really rich, that really experienced level of content to the young person. We match on a whole host of other things, such as shared interests, such as logistics of where the young person is based and what they can do. But it's really about creating that really high level, high quality match for a young person to speak to someone who is just an expert in whatever they need support with.
Amazing. And you mentioned volunteers there. I want to talk about volunteers because as we're talking, we're still just about in June. And obviously the start of this month was Volunteers Week. And so we've seen a lot this month about the amazing work that volunteers do and how vital they are to charities across the UK. Now, you've got this amazing network of volunteers supporting your work and the one-to-one work that you do in particular. Tell us about how you go about finding the right volunteers, finding the right people and retaining them. Have you got any secret? Are there some tips that you pass on?
Firstly, I want to start by saying that volunteers are the lifeblood of Bright Futures. And without amazing volunteers who work with us, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And there'd be so many young people who go without the correct support. So they're just the most incredible individuals you'll ever come across. You're absolutely right. We have a couple of 100-person database of volunteers who are excellent. Finding these individuals is one of the least stressful parts of the charity. There's obviously a constant need to recruit more volunteers and recruit volunteers with specific expertise in areas requested. But we're very grateful and we're very appreciative that there is a huge willingness from young people, from professionals who are teachers, tutors, freelancers, executives, stay-at-home mum and dads, anyone who's got a certain skill qualification, to use it in a really meaningful way. And that's not to knock any other type of volunteering, but volunteering in a way that uses your skills, what you spend years and years developing and learning, and making a direct difference to a young person's life, a tangible difference that you can see from point A of a young person coming in quite shy, quite retiring, a bit nervous, probably not so confident on whatever the session topic is, to the last session where a volunteer gets to see this young person that's blossomed, that's developed, that's grown so much throughout the time. It's something that we couldn't put a price on. It's something that's just so valuable to them and they get a lot from. So I think the short answer is we're very grateful that we have a lot of volunteers reaching out to us to use their time, their experience in a way that they get to see the difference. But when we do need to go out and recruit volunteers, we're very privileged that there's a really fantastic response and a real willingness from people to use their time and expertise in a way that's making a difference they can see.
Oh, that's great. What a fantastic thing for people to be able to do. And as you say, use the skills that you have and make such a difference. When you do talk to your volunteers, people who've been working with young people for a little while for you, what's the most common thing they say? What do they say to you in terms of their experience?
I'd say that the most common thing that's said is how much of a good time the volunteers had in the program themselves. Whether it's a tutoring program, studying something hard and tedious, or whether it's a befriending program where they are doing something social, something where there's a shared interest. Every volunteer we speak to has enjoyed it thoroughly, has had such a lovely time. The young people we work with, going through something so horrible at such a young age builds a level of resilience, a level of character that you just can't you can't teach. It's something that unfortunately through these horrible experiences you have to build and develop. But what that offers the volunteer is something that they've never experienced before. It's coming into contact with these young people who are so mature to a certain extent, so resilient, so insightful. So I think they gain a lot from the young person in terms of value, in terms of insights, in terms of just seeing seeing how someone like that's going through what they're going through.
Yeah. And can I ask as well how you go about thanking your volunteers? Volunteers Week this week and this month rather, and throughout this month, we've seen a lot of charities talking about and making a point of thanking their volunteers. How do you go about making sure that you get to recognise what they do? What's the secret?
There's no level of recognition that's really enough for these volunteers. They are truly incredible people, but we try and do what we can to recognise and appreciate the volunteers. So we have a great volunteer department who tries to put on some fantastic events for volunteers, really bring value there. We try to recognise volunteers through spotlights, through storytelling, through promoting the work they do. We absolutely make sure that we share feedback from volunteers and the young people they're working with. I think that, to me, is the most powerful recognition and appreciation we can show volunteers. As we can say thank you till we're blue in the face, and we absolutely do. And we're grateful to the volunteers for everything they do. Not just the hour a week or whatever it is they're giving to the young person, but the time and effort they put into the program that goes above and beyond. The planning, the thinking about what they can do, I did this there, I'd love to tell the young person that and share my experience. So I think hearing the feedback from the young person and vice versa, sharing that is the best way that volunteers can really feel appreciated.
What an interesting chat, Tim. It's just fascinating to hear how someone who's faced so much himself is now focused on helping young people going through the same thing. So inspirational stuff. Now, though, it's time for a bit of third sector news. What have you spotted this week, Tim?
This is a really interesting one, actually. It raises a bit of an ethical dilemma, Piers. I'm keen to hear your thoughts on. So this is the story about this advert from a vegan charity that's been banned by the Advertising Standards Authority. The advert from the charity Viva shows a baby being taken away from its mother, and it's been banned, as I mentioned, by the Advertising Standards Authority because they deemed it to be irresponsible. Now, the 50-second advert shows a baby sleeping in its cot with its mother coming in the room to check on it when an ominous man dressed in all black appears. The baby suddenly then disappears, and when the distressed mother asks where her child has gone, the man replies, "You can't keep your baby because we want your milk." The charity said the advert, titled Scary Dairy, was meant to replicate the unsettling process experienced by dairy calves being separated from their mothers. The ASA, however, said it was insensitive, especially to those with experience of loss or trauma around parenthood. So it was clearly a shocking advert, and it raises a really interesting debate, I think, regarding charity ethics and advertising. And I think we've touched a little bit on this in past episodes. Charities often play, as we know, on viewers' emotion to encourage support. But I can't really think of another charity advert that has looked to shock or scare viewers in this way. Is it irresponsible in terms of how those impacted by child loss may feel when watching it? Or, as the charity might argue, is it justifiably trying to humanise the reality of what happens to animals? The ASA has allowed other hard-hitting ads in the past to run, doing a little bit of research. This is when it deems that they have been handled appropriately. There was an advert by Bernardo's in 2008 that showed a young girl experiencing a cycle of abuse. And the ASA, with that advert, said that it was handled appropriately. So in their eyes, this advert by Viva, the vegan charity, has obviously crossed a line. What do you think, Piers? Is that a step too far?
It's a really tricky one, Tim, isn't it? We're talking about it. So it's done what it set out to do, which is to shock and get the conversation going. But you're right. It must have gone through several iterations. It must have gone through several sign-offs in the organisation, probably internally and externally. So somewhere along the line, the kind of controversy that it's sparking wasn't brought up as a red flag. It's almost like you want to see the machinations behind how it came to fruition to work out, if it did what it wanted to do, and whether they were deliberately wanting to do that. I mean, let's be honest, maybe they wanted to cause it.
All publicity is good publicity, isn't that what someone says?
Yeah, it is kind of a little bit of that, but You know, you can't please everyone all the time. Can't please everyone, or you can't please everyone. I can't.
Whatever. I know what you mean.
You know what I mean.
Yeah. Interesting though, isn't it? I think it's an interesting debate and an interesting story. And maybe if we can persuade someone from Viva to come onto the show to give us their perspective, I'd love to hear what they have to say. So yeah. Anyway, what have you spotted, please?
Well, this week there's been an explosive news story, Tim, if you'll pardon the pun there, which it features a Colchester charity shop for the RSPCA Essex Mid and North's charity shop over in Colchester, who had to call in the bomb squad after opening one of their bags of, the regular donations that the charity shops receive, to find what it quotes as a 2 or 3 kilo explosive device, which the initial charity shop staff thought was a replica. And Miss Abbott from Clapton is quoted in the piece about it. It said that alarm bells started ringing as they looked at the bottom of the missile, and it's calling it a missile now. So a missile, 2 to 3 kilos. This is not some small little hand grenade. This is a device that's going to cause a lot of problem. So yeah, the bomb squad were called in, and the Essex police said that within 15 minutes they had sent out an army bomb disposal unit officer. Miss Abbott, who works at the shop, was quoted as saying, "I thought I would deal with it when we had more time. I needed to sit down and research." She says, "We never thought in a million years someone would donate a live piece of ammunition, which must win the prizes for the understatement of the year." She said that it wasn't until she went home and sent some photos, people told me I had to deal with it now. So yes, the bomb squad were called in, and the device was examined, neutralized, and safely removed from the shop, later confirming actually that it was live ammunition. So the mind boggles that where someone just thought, I've got a few old t-shirts, I've got a few old sets of shoes, I've also got this live missile that I'll just send over to the charity shop. So yeah, the perils and the trials and tribulations of being a charity shop worker.
That's a great story, as you said, a real explosive story, that one. But I think the question there is, who donated it? Isn't that the actual question to ask here? What else has that person got in their cupboards?
Exactly. But I think Miss Abbott, who works at the shop, she does need some sort of medal, because I'm just reading further down here. She did say that, and she was quoted as saying, "But let this be a gentle reminder to double check your donations." So she is becoming the queen of the understatement. So yeah, the message to take away from this story: double check you haven't accidentally put any live ammunition in your donations to your local charity shop.
It's some books, a t-shirt, a bomb, a jar, a jug. What? How did you just inadvertently put I've seen the photographs, incredible as well. It is a proper missile.
You're right. There's no disguising what it is. It's not like it looks like a tea cozy or anything, is it?
Right. Amazing. There we go. Great story, Piers. Great story.
Now for part 2 of our conversation with Josh Pelled from Bright Futures UK. In this half, Josh lifts the lid on how the charity works behind the scenes, from partnerships and volunteering to the big picture challenge of reaching the thousands of young people affected every year. Let's get back into it.
So I want to talk to you about partnerships. Looking at your website, and excuse me if I got this wrong, and if I'm sort of reading between the lines a bit here, but it looks to me like you also work with schools, NHS trusts, other charities as well in your work. Was that always part of the plan, or did that sort of grow organically over time?
There's elements of it which were always part of the plan, and there's elements which have developed over the years. I think that the point that's fundamental to how the charity was set up and created was that we all work with NHS trusts. Having been through the hospital system too many times to count, I saw the pressure that staff were under. And fast forward to a post-COVID era, the pressure the NHS is on is unbelievable. But the young people who go through hospitals are typically either the most in need because their illness is the most impactful to their normal life, or it's young people who need support at the earliest stage possible because they're being diagnosed, they're starting treatment, so on and so forth. They're not necessarily in the recovery period, the end period, where they're at home resting, looking to get back to normality. So we prioritized our NHS partnerships because it gave us a direct access point to the most in need young people. And as a small charity with limited resources, looking to use them in the most efficient way, that's where we decided was the most appropriate place for us to position ourselves. And what we found is that there's a huge amount of gratitude from the NHS for our service that goes both in hospital to deal with patients who are going through treatment and inpatients, but also for the continuity of services, so that when a young person leaves hospital or goes home to recover or starts to transition back into education, we're also a fixed point. Whereas there are many services that do offer a limited amount of interventions or a limited amount of programming, Bright Futures is there throughout the entirety of the young person's journey. And I think that's really core to why we've partnered with the NHS. The partnerships that have developed since then of working with other charities and other local authorities and even the odd school has really come from the need that's out there for Bright Future services. As I've mentioned, we are the only charity that supports children and young people who are out of education for long-term illnesses, an issue we estimate affects over 100,000 young people each year. So there's a huge need. And other organisations working with young people facing illness, other local authorities, schools, they have to turn somewhere. And Bright Futures, I'm very grateful, has been the organisation that they've turned to make sure that these young people are getting the most comprehensive and full support they can.
It's amazing work. Let's talk a little bit about some of the behind the scenes stuff. And I'm really keen to, given the scale of the challenge that you've got, in terms of the numbers you've just quoted there, in terms of the number of young people affected, tell me about, well, first of all, tell me about, in terms of setting up the charity and getting to this place you are now, what's been the most challenging thing that you've had to sort of take on board or had to handle and address? And then also, second part to the question, what are your thoughts in terms of scaling up? How do you go about going from where you are to trying to address some of that bigger need?
The biggest challenge was understanding the size of the issue. As I mentioned, we very naively went into hospital to try and educate some people on the next steps. And what we found was it very organically snowballed into what Bright Futures is today. That happened because the government doesn't actually hold any data on the number of young people who specifically are out of education for long-term illnesses. So typically when someone starts a business, when they start a charity, they go, what is the issue? What's the need? And they say, there's this many people affected by this issue. With Bright Futures, we knew there was a huge issue from the demand for us coming into a hospital, but we didn't really know the size of the issue. So the biggest challenge, and even still to this day to a certain extent, is educating people on the issue. Because there's no charity doing what we do, it's not something that people are acutely aware of. You kind of say to someone, there's a young person going through treatment for this illness, and they go, I really hope they get better. I really hope they recover. I really hope they overcome the illness. But people then stop. They don't go, okay, but when they finish the illness and when they have finished treatment and when they overcome that, what then? What's life look like? They don't realize how much, and particularly as we've already discussed, how much being out of the bubble of school, bubble of education can really impact the young person. So educating people on the issue has been one of the earliest challenges we faced, and still to a certain extent a challenge we face, just getting people to be aware of how significant the impact is. And it's not just affecting the young person, it's affecting mum and dad, it's affecting siblings, it's affecting statutory funding where parents are having to take time away from work, not paying taxes, paying benefits. So there's a real snowball effect from the young person of the impact. Education of the issue is kind of always a priority for us, making people understand how important this piece of work is. Which leads into how we look to scale. And I think it's really about raising the profile of this issue. It's an issue that I would cautiously say affects everyone in one way or another, whether that's directly of a child's, your child, a friend's child going through it, a friend of yours, a friend of a friend. It will touch everyone's life at some point. in their formative years. So as we educate more young people, as we educate more people in general, that helps Bright Futures grow. That helps us reach more young people who need us. That helps us recruit more volunteers who become aware of our work and want to give their time. It helps us reach funders who see our work, see the impact of what we're being able to do with a small population of the entire population, and helps us build more resource to reach more young people, essentially.
Does that mean that the future for Bright Futures perhaps is more of a campaigning organization as well? Are you going to be advocating for change? You're talking about, you've talked very eloquently about this sort of hidden group of young people in the system who perhaps aren't supported by the education system in the way that they could be, can't get the support that you offer through the NHS. So it is part of your future making decision makers, policy makers aware of that as well.
That's already a stream of work we're leaning into, and particularly this year, we are working on advocacy with two very critical policy asks, recommendations set out already, and that is to, number one, record the number of young people affected by illness in education and who are removed from an education setting for a long period of time.
I still can't believe that's not done already. That is staggering.
We've sent a lot of freedom of information requests to Department of Education, Department of Health and Social Care, local authorities. It was a really hard pill for me to swallow as someone who's lived it, to understand that the government's not really aware of this. The government doesn't really know. And the secondary ask we have is that statutory guidance is updated. I think, yes, we can absolutely be the voice to help young people be heard and understand and have decision makers understand what they're going through. But we never want to lose the fact that Bright Futures is one of the most efficient solution providers as a charity in the charitable space, and particularly in a very unique way, being the only ones providing support for such a large demographic. We don't want to step away from delivering the direct support, where the Bright Futures team, volunteers, is excellent at making sure that support is provided quickly in a timely manner and is of really high quality. So we love to collaborate. We love to work with other organisations, as kind of you might have picked up from our partnerships with NHS hospitals and charities. But we always want to be an organisation that's here to help, to support other organisations, statutory provisions, but most importantly, the young people going through these horrible situations. So
with all that in mind, what's the dream? What's the big picture? I'm going to ask you a classic sort of interview question now. Where are you going to be in 5 years' time?
Where are we going to be in 5 years? The answer is simply 5 years older. But the actual response is that Bright Futures continues to be a national charity and reach young people all over the UK who are unfortunately not being given the support they need to overcome the challenge of illness. A challenge that no young person should have to face alone. And with Bright Future services, they don't. We build communities, we help make sure they have the tools they need, the support they need to overcome everything outside of the medical issue.
Sure. Josh, it's been fantastic to talk to you. Thank you for joining us today. Got to end by asking someone listening to this who perhaps maybe feels inspired to give you a bell in terms of becoming a volunteer or to support the charity in some other way, a funder perhaps, you never know. What can they do to get in touch? Where do they go?
You can go to our website. You can get in touch with us through our website. We've got lots of different ways to do that, through a contact form, an info email. You can always reach out to me directly. You'll find me on LinkedIn. And I think we're very easy to reach. So please get in touch with us. If you want to find out more information or learn more about our services, we're here.
Fantastic. We'll make sure, Josh, we put all the links to the website, your LinkedIn, everything else in the show notes. Anybody listening who wants to get in touch with Josh, just take a look at the show notes and all the information will be there. But Josh, for now, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Tim. Great to be here.
Over the past few episodes, we've been celebrating some of the UK's brilliant small charities, the ones making a big difference, often on tight budgets and with little fanfare. These organisations are everywhere, supporting communities, changing lives, and cracking on without much of the spotlight. We think that deserves more attention. So if you're part of one, or you know a charity that's doing amazing work under the radar, get in touch. Drop us a line at thecharityshowpod@gmail.com or use the link in the show notes. Just tell us who you are, who you support, and what would help right now. Maybe it's more visibility, new connections, or just a bit of backup. We'll do what we can to help share your story. Right then, Piers, who are we shining a spotlight on this week?
This week I've got The Calm Corner, which is a not-for-profit community interest company based in Rayleigh, Essex. And I'm just going to quote directly from their website that as qualified counsellors, The Calm Corner works with children, teens, families and adults to support and improve their mental health and their well-being with a strong focus on early intervention, inclusivity and making support accessible. So Calm Corner has qualified counsellors with passions for helping others in the community, and they've made it their mission to offer a wide range of low-cost and free services that benefit local people who may not be able to afford private help. So it's a fantastic local community-based charity there, Tim, that's just reaching out and helping a wide variety of people in desperate need for it. So a proper grassroots organisations.
Great stuff. Lovely to hear. Like that one, The Calm Corner. And I've got this amazing charity called Flutter. Flutter is a small but properly mighty UK charity supporting people who've been diagnosed with kidney cancer. Their mission, they tell us, is simple: to bring a little brightness during a really tough time. They do this by providing butterfly bags and comfort cushions, both handmade by volunteers and given completely free to patients through hospitals and clinics. The idea came from Mary Sofa, who was diagnosed with kidney cancer herself in 2017. She realised how isolating and overwhelming the experience can be, especially during hospital stays and treatment. Inspired by the symbol of the butterfly, often seen during her own recovery, she launched Flutter in 2024 to offer something practical and comforting to others going through it. The butterfly bags are packed with useful and thoughtful items for hospital admissions, things like toiletries, lip balm, puzzle books — who doesn't love a puzzle book — socks and even peppermint tea. The comfort cushions are perfect for recovery after surgery or while having treatment. They provide physical support and a bit of emotional comfort too. Everything is lovingly made by volunteers, Flutter's sewing bees, and each item is tailored to help patients feel seen, supported and a little less alone. It's a brilliantly personal approach to support that fills a real gap in kidney cancer care. And Flutter is also helping raise awareness about a condition that still flies under the radar for many. To find out more or get involved, we'll put the links in the show notes to both charities.
That's a great one, Tim. I do love the personal story as well, how the butterfly inspired the setup of that. It's just brilliant. 2 more brilliant small charities this week, making a huge difference. And don't forget, if there's a small charity you think we should feature, drop us a line at thecharityshowpod@gmail.com or head to the link in the show notes to nominate them. And that's a wrap for episode 30. A huge thanks to Josh for shining a light on Brighter Futures UK and the amazing work they do. What's coming up next, Tim?
Well, we'll be back next Monday with another episode of the Charity Show Bites. And in a fortnight's time, we'll be back with a brilliant insight into an amazing partnership between Cure Parkinson's and Alzheimer's Research UK. And don't forget, if you fancy being a guest on a future episode of the main show, we'd love to hear from you.
Totally. There are so many brilliant stories in this sector and we want to hear yours. Whatever you or your charity are working on, drop us an email, send us a voice note or slide into our DMs using the links in the show notes. Tell us what you think we should be shining a light on.
And if there's a small UK charity doing great work that you think needs a shout out, don't keep it to yourself. Nominate them for our small charity spotlight, whether it's your own organisation or one you've quietly admired for years. Just hit the link in the show notes and tell us why they deserve a bit of love.
If you like this episode, hit follow or subscribe on your podcast app. And if you've got a moment, leaving a 5-star review helps more people find the show. We really appreciate it.
So that's it for episode 30. Thanks for tuning in, for sharing and for being part of the conversation. Look after yourselves and we'll see you soon.